are live. What's good, y'all? It's your man, DL Saint. Welcome. I really want to know podcast. What's happening with you, man? What's happening? Just checking everything. All right, that's good. We're live on the little screen. We're live on the big screen. We're live right here, man. How y'all feeling out there, man? Happy Monday. This is catching my second win, y'all. I'm trying to, get back to the grind. Trying to get to 2,200 subs. It's right around 2,190. I can never break that barrier. It's been like that for a minute. So like, all right, let's start doing this stuff for real. Let's get back to doing our shows. Let's get back to doing, let's do some shorts and let's do some clips and let's keep it going. Bro, today, man, we definitely got to talk about what's going on with the economy. We have to, man. What's going on right now in the American economy affects every single one of us. And no one really seems to be paying attention, bro. Let's get into it. And we are live. What's good, y'all? Welcome to the I Really Want to Know podcast, y'all. Get some indeed, bro. Thanks for rocking out with us, man. Appreciate you, man. If you guys could be so kind, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share this with whoever you think might benefit or really just to get the conversation going. You know what I mean? Dr. B in the building. What's good, fam? Yeah, man, a lot of people say the dollar has been up and down, mostly down. I mean, if you look at it over the past 8 years. I'm no expert though. This is just all the talking heads. So we're gonna get some people who are more aligned in that world and kind of look at where the value is. I mean, inflation has been doing what it does, and the dollar's purchasing power has definitely gone down. This is why Americans believe everything costs so much because, I mean, check your receipts. Look at what you've been buying. Like, go over your receipts. Like, okay, when you go grocery shopping. People tend to buy the same thing over and over again when they go grocery shopping. Check your receipts. I got a bag of receipts that goes back, I want to say 4, maybe 5 years. And what I'm going to do is begin to just compare receipts. Because whenever I go to Trader Joe's, for example, I buy the exact same thing. Whenever I go to Publix, which is a grocery store here, it's like a Ralph or Kroger's, same thing. When dry cleaning, gas, if I go to my favorite, whatever restaurant I go to, if I go to California Pizza Kitchen, for example, here in Tampa, there's one in the International Mall. If I go there, I tend to get the same thing. So I can go back and I can look over the past 3 years and see, like, how come I bought the same meal, here are the 2 receipts. Why is it that it costs this much more in 2025 than it did in 2020? So that's the dollar's purchasing power is definitely going down. The rest of the world is tied to the dollar, and now there are troubling signs that the world is starting to come out of the dollar, come away from the dollar, which is bad news for America. Brother Mandrill in the building. What's good, Devil Dog? This is the video you sent me, bro. We starting with that video, which again, I told him when you sent, I'm like, man, I already saw that. Troubling. Troubling. We're going to start with that video. Brother Pitney in the building as well. What's good, fam? I appreciate y'all, man. But this is stuff we got to look at, man. So we can just look at this stuff and get the conversation going, and then we can go out and talk to our folks, whoever or in your inner circles, and then bring that information back, bro. Again, I am no expert. Finance is not my thing. I ain't go to school for it. I didn't work in the field. But we're just going to talk to people who tend to know about this sort of stuff, man. So this brother right here, from what is it, Clear Value Tax? I think that's the name of this podcast, man. He got a couple million subscribers. This is all he talks about. And let's get into this video. We got Brother Michael in the building. What's good, fam? See, Brother Michael knows way more about this stuff than I do. I don't know if he works in the business or this is just his thing. He kind of follows it. Like my cousin follows cars. Like the automotive industry, my cousin's all over that. People were out here flipping houses. He was flipping cars. And what I mean by that, he would buy himself a nice vehicle and then, enjoy the vehicle, utilize the vehicle. He takes care of his vehicles. And then he had a Raptor. He drove that Raptor for about a year and a half, man. And when he sold that Raptor, I mean, he basically sold it for what he bought it for, bro. It's like he drove around for months for free. He had to pay maintenance and gas and all that. But like, bro, he watches vehicles and he was telling me like what's going on in that market. There's a lot of talk about the automotive market is really weak right now. We could talk about that if y'all want to one day. But that's not a market that I watch. Maybe Brother Michael watches this market. But he was like, all the currencies are falling at a rapid rate. Just right now, the US dollar is the cleanest shirt in the dirty hamper. Facts. And we say that a million times over here. I know I say it all the time. America catches a cold financially, man. The rest of the world catches flu. That's why it's troubling to me. It seems that people are coming out of the dollar. And according to this video we're about to look at a little bit of, dollar crisis, the world is dumping dollars and buying gold. That's troubling. I know a lot of people are like, well, won't they buy crypto? Because crypto is not stable, bro. Crypto is a bet. That's all crypto is. Crypto can shoot up to 200,000 or it can shoot down to 10,000. No one knows. But gold, silver, land, that's different. If you're going to park your money somewhere, that's where the world is trying to park it. No one is buying U.S. treasuries anymore, man. Mandrell is right. And America has been running the biggest Ponzi scheme our species has ever seen. If you want to really look at it, how do we pay for all this stuff, man? How is all of our debt financed? How is it America is so many trillions of dollars in the hole? Is it anybody who's been watching the debt clock? Where are we right now? Are we at 35 trillion yet? Where are we at? Someone tell me, Brother Pitney, what is the national debt right now? Even though it changes. In the time it took me to ask that question, the debt went up probably a couple billion, right? So that's how fast the American debt is growing. I want to say, we're around 32 trillion, 35 trillion, somewhere in there. But if no one is buying our debt, America has a real problem. A real problem. It's like no George Gammon videos. Gammon, when I put this together, George Gammon was doing a video at the time. He was doing a live. We might jump over if I can find it. It's not set up for this, but I might, because he was talking about it. Definitely gonna, you know what? We'll save George Gammon for Wednesday. We're gonna definitely do some videos with George Gammon on Wednesday because you guys know I've been watching him for years now, and bro, he just keeps it 100, bro. When it comes to money, when it comes to finance, he keeps it 100. But we're definitely gonna have George Gammon. Let's do that Wednesday. And Brother Michael saying I'm in tax and consulting. But I just dig into it because I found too many flaws in conversational financial education and post-secondary education. Oh, that's what's up. That's what's up. Thank you, brother. So please keep it straight. Please keep it straight. And remember, I'm not that smart. So you might have to talk in layman's terms. I'm not that bright. When it comes to this is not my strong suit. Finances is not my strong suit. I go to people who are very, very well versed in this field and I talk to them. So I will definitely love to hear anything you have to say, brother, and anything you want to post in here, please do so we can go and educate ourselves. Because the question becomes, what do you do? Like, how are we gonna handle this downturn? I really believe that America is gonna be like the end of the 70s and the first part of the 80s. I think we're gonna go into a pretty bad downturn. Not as bad as the Great Depression, but it's gonna be worse than the Great Recession, in my opinion. I think we're gonna see unemployment, the way they calculate unemployment today. I think we're going to see unemployment hit, 16, anywhere between 15 and 8. I say anywhere between 14 and 17%. That's my guess. That's my best guesstimate. That's what I think unemployment is going to hit. The way that they calculate unemployment today, the best numbers are going to come out is going to be double digits, going to be under 20%. But understand the Great Depression, I think, was 20% unemployment. So it is going to be, there it is, Brother Mandrell, appreciate that. 37 trillion. We're at 37 trillion in debt right now. Right now. Damn. 37 trillion, guys. The average, I don't think there's a human alive that can really fathom that amount of money. Trillion. Remember old boy did the thing with billions with using rice? Like using rice to say, using rights to demonstrate how many billions of dollars that Jeff Bezos and all these other people have. Trillions. Our national debt 37 trillion, and it's gone up way since I just said that. It's continued going up. Dr. B, like, yeah, man, cars aren't selling that much. Someone was telling me that I think right now, banks are approving a lot of car loans right now. And to me, that's kind of scary. It's like the last push before they shut things down. That's how I'm taking it. But hey, if you're looking for a car, now it's time to go get it. If you got cash, now's the time to hit the auction. If you have cash money and you're looking to get you a really good deal on the vehicle, now's the time to go to an auction. Damn, 37 trillion. Brother Penny, the current U.S. national debt is approximately 37.43 trillion as of September 8th, 2025. Thank you, brothers. I appreciate. Shout out to Don DeMarco for both of y'all. So sharp. Don DeMarco. Damn. You're like, man, Joe, like, I keep up on the finances. Yeah, them country boys, boy, they know how to squeeze a penny, boy. I tell you what. You know what I'm saying? We all better learn how to squeeze our pennies because we're in it now, guys. We're in it now. And this conversation, bro, like, y'all know how I feel about politics, bro, but this is beyond politics. You know, you say what you want about the current administration, say what you want about the last administration. It doesn't matter. We kicked the can down the road and down the road and down the road. And now that can is bouncing off the wall and hitting us right in the face, right? There's no more road to kick the can down. It's a wrap. And it was someone in the comments when we were talking about finances last week. It's a cool dude who lives in the U.S., but, you know, he's European. I think he has dual citizenship or something like that. And he was saying that, you know, it's like, I don't think the banks are going to fail, but if they do, they're just going to lower interest rates and they're going to print money. And I think that game plan is done. I don't think you could do that anymore. If we print money, inflation is going to absolutely destroy us. So, and we know that Jerome Powell knows that. He is dead set against raising. He is so worried about inflation that he doesn't really want to raise interest rates. He doesn't want to lower interest rates. He wants to continue to raise interest rates. But the stuff with the tariffs have really thrown a monkey wrench into the works. So the tariffs really messing stuff up. On again, off again. Is it legal? Is it not legal? Judges ruling against it. Judges allowing it. That fight is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. We have to see what they're going to say. But these tariffs is having such an adverse effect on the American economy, and there's nothing we can do about it. And they're going to continue to tighten their belts. And I'm talking about American U.S. companies going to continue to tighten their belts. They're going to continue to lay folks off, AKA fire them, right? Which is going to drive the unemployment rate up. And it's going to be more and more pressure on the dollar. And you have the rest of the world. If this brother is correct and he's saying that the other countries are coming out of the dollar and opting to buy gold, man, we're going to have some real problems. But let's check this out, man. Let's listen to what's going on. I haven't heard any of this because when, I told Mandrell I saw this, but I purposely didn't listen to it because I wanted to be able to hear this fresh with y'all so we can throw our ideas in here together. So let's check it out.
The world is continuing to ditch the US dollar, and the dollar is being replaced by gold as the reserve assets of the world. So this de-dollarization process is what's been driving up the price of gold to record highs.
That makes sense.
So I want you to know that this whole de-dollarization process, it's not a one-time event. It's not like a crashing event. It's a process. And I want to update you on the situation and tell you where it goes from here. But first, I want to explain this to you so that we're all on the same page. So let's just say that you want to store your wealth in a vault, okay? What are you going to fill up the vault with if you have to choose between these two? Are you going to fill it up with physical gold, or are you going to fill it up with IOUs written on a piece of paper? Well, I don't know about you, but here's what other countries are deciding to do. Central banks around the world are turning away from the US dollar, and instead they're buying gold as a way to store their wealth. Okay, so you see, before, central banks were buying US treasuries, like treasury bonds, and that was considered wealth. It was basically like, look at how many IOUs that I have from the US government. Like, I'm so rich, the US government owes me so much money. Like, look at how much they owe me. But then these central banks, they realized that the US government could just print these paper IOUs, like trillions of them, like instantaneously. So you can call it dilution, you can call it inflation, or you can call it worthless. And central banks are now questioning whether holding these pieces of paper that say IOU on them is truly a form of wealth.
So, guys, and Brother Michael, you can back me up on this. Once upon a time, before President Nixon, every U.S. dollar was backed by gold. We were on the gold standard. So when you held that IOU from the U.S., right, which was the greenbacks, the dollars you buying, you knew that the money supply was only going to grow as much as the amount of gold that America has. So the paper was tied to something of value, which was gold. So you just couldn't print money. You had to back up your money with gold. We were on the gold standard. And Nixon, wanting to continue the war in Vietnam, decided, man, I can't be restrained by this. We don't have enough money. I got to keep fighting communism. I got to fight in, Vietnam. So we're going to come off the gold standard. So now there's nothing backing the U.S. dollar. Nothing. It's just a piece of paper that people have faith that America's going to be able to pay their IOU. So now your IOU isn't like as good as gold. Your IOU is just as good as America's word. You feel me? So we came off the gold standard. That was a problem. That was a problem. Now you got a currency that isn't real. You know what I mean? And here the brother Michael, he's like, correct, DL. I literally just did a space on Twitter X on this topic. I'm gonna have to get more active on X, guys and brother, because I would love to be on your X to just listen in on that. Do me a favor, brother. Can you put your handle in the chat? Let me make you add as mod. You are a moderator. There you go, brother. Can you do me a favor, brother Michael? Can you drop your X handle or whatever that is in the chat? Because I'm gonna start getting more active. I'm gonna have to work my schedule to where I can get more active on X. But yeah, man, the dollar is worthless today because it's not backed by gold. But the rest of the world, right? The rest of the world believes in the U.S. dollar, at least up until this point. The rest of the world believed in the U.S. dollar. The U.S. never defaulted on its debt, right? The U.S. had the top credit rating, but you guys remember America's credit got downgraded. What was it, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that? America got downgraded, which I thought was crazy. And then we have a president, again, this is not to beat up on Trump, but you have an executive branch that's really doing some cowboy shit. The rest of the world is like, hold on. What are we doing here? Are we safe? What's going on? What happens if America collapses? What happens if China is successful and taking over as the world currency or the global financial superpower? What are we doing here? So for the rest of the world to start buying gold, that's the biggest hedge of all. That has me worried, y'all. That has me worried, bro. Right. And Brother Manjo was saying like U.S. dollar ain't backed by nothing. Right. We were on a gold standard. Nixon did take us off. Guys, I do a little bit of reading sometime. I watch a lot of documentaries. I always have. Right. And that gold standard thing is something that I was always looking at like, well, what's going on with that? So this video seems like this is a video. This brother's giving us all of the history so it'll make sense to us as to what's going on, man, because, having a currency that's not backed by anything other than the faith and trust that America's always going to be on top. I mean, that's cool until America starts having problems, right? So let's continue.
Perhaps it's no more valuable than monopoly money because, again, they could just print trillions of these whenever they want.
Yep.
So now central banks are buying gold, not U.S. treasuries. Now, I want you to take a look at this chart, which goes back to 1970. It shows how central banks are going back to gold as the reserve assets of the world. So the yellow line represents gold and the blue line represents U.S. treasuries. For the first time since 1996, foreign central banks now hold more gold than U.S. treasuries. And just look at the chart, you're going to notice that gold has a lot more room to run. But listen, as far as I'm concerned, The past 50 plus years was a giant fiat currency experiment that is unraveling in real time. So for the past 2 generations, the banks, the governments, society, they've been brainwashing us that gold is a relic of the past and that it was okay to have a currency backed by nothing. It's okay to have a currency that's a fiat currency. So I just want to say that, do you really think that a fiat currency system is the norm in human civilization? It's not. So this experiment failed. Gold is coming back into the picture, a sound money system. And I just want to show you what's happening around the world. China is a large producer of gold, but China is going out of their way to import a lot of gold. So the Russians are doing the same thing. They're stockpiling gold, especially after the United States and allies froze Russian accounts filled with US Treasury bonds and other assets. So when President Biden froze Russia's assets and started giving that money to Ukraine and spending it on classified expenditures, essentially the US dollar was weaponized. So the situation is, if the US government doesn't like what you're doing, then they can freeze your money and they can take your money. But after doing that, it scared off other countries from buying more US treasuries. India has been buying more gold. They've been accumulating much more gold, and I don't blame them. Just think about the heavy tariffs on India. So you know what? I mean, you know where this is going. It's going to be.
Bro, y'all see this, man. India is having drama with our executive branch, right? So India has secretly flown 200 tons of gold stored in England back to India. The Russians are buying gold. The Chinese are buying gold. Bro. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't like the fact that America could just seize whatever they want because it's all U.S. treasuries. We can just stop the flow of people's money. People don't like what they're seeing. And Brother Michael, I appreciate that, man. I'm definitely gonna check out your I'm gonna check out your X. I'm gonna really work out my schedule so I can get on there, and because people seem to be on X doing a whole bunch of stuff, so I'm gonna have to get over there and see what's going on. I'm always late to the party. Y'all know how it is, bro. Cool kid, you know what I mean? Cool kids always come in late, right? Brother Penny, if all the central banks opted for gold instead of U.S. treasuries, liquidity would dry up rapidly. That could eventually lead to currency unpegged that would make foreign exchange markets go wild. Facts. 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 Right? When you look at this kind of stuff, bro, like there are very, very smart people in D.C., you know, and this is beyond politics. This the 1% is looking at this. The 1% is looking at this. It's like, all right, what's going on? And don't think for a second that the 1% won't pull all of their money and all of their assets, all of their wealth out of America and move somewhere else, right? If that meant that they get to hold on to their generational wealth, they'll do it in a heartbeat. They'll do it in a heartbeat. They wouldn't even think twice about it, right? That's the game we in, bro. Total sum. Like that's where we at, bro. That's where we at, Brother Mandrill. Even the U.S. is buying gold. There's a war to buy all the gold. That's crazy. Like, we're doing it too. Everyone's buying the gold. So will the next war be over gold instead of oil and land and resources? What are we going to be doing, Brother Mike? It was like, nah, DL, you're not late. I'm a huge social media guy. Just click with the person or two. So I'll grab about the truth. Hey, man, or I'll gab about the truth. Appreciate that, bro. I'm coming to holler at you, man. I'm coming to holler at you, bro. I'm definitely, I'll be, I'm gonna copy this down so I can come over because I'm on X. So as soon as this is over, I'm gonna just open up my X account and go, you know, sign up to your thing, bro. I want to see what you're doing over there. And thank you for doing it. Thank you for doing it. Like I said, I got so much to learn about finance and what's going on with the global economy and all that. But I do understand. I believe I have a grasp of the fundamentals. And the fundamental is this: fiat currencies don't work. The U.S. dollar is a fiat currency because we came off the gold standard. And it sounds like it's a rush. All the nations are getting as much gold as they can, right? And it's not like you're going to create more gold, right? So it's a finite number. And hopefully, maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe we'll go back to a gold standard, or we'll come up with a new dollar that's tied to the gold standard, which will really, this is the time to buy gold, guys. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not no financial guy, so, you know, I'm not giving financial advice or anything like that, but I'm just saying this might be the time to really get you some gold in the house, get you a couple bars, maybe get you some coins. This might be the time to do it, because if we go back to a gold standard, then the value of gold goes through the roof. There's no more suppressing gold. I've always wondered why gold has been so cheap. Someone was suppressing gold. You know, maybe it was the Illuminati. You know what I mean? Maybe it was those people out there who don't want nobody to have nothing. You know what I mean? Maybe it was the Hollywood elites and the people who really run the world. Is like, we're just gonna suppress gold so people are always be tied to our currency. Okay, enough of that. Enough of that. Let me take my tinfoil hat off. Enough of that. Let's get back to the video.
You play under our terms. Otherwise, we're going to freeze your assets and your accounts. We're going to confiscate everything. And the natural response by India, China, Russia, and the entire world is to buy gold instead of US treasuries. And even countries that are strong allies of the US, they're buying gold. Bukele, the president of El Salvador, who's a big supporter of Bitcoin, decided to buy gold for his country. And I also want to bring up that there's speculation, which a lot of people don't think is far-fetched, that most of the gold is missing from Fort Knox and other US gold vaults, which is why President Trump went silent on the auditing of the gold, because the gold that was supposed to be there was either sold or leased out. So this explains the massive quantities of gold imports that the US government has been conducting. So they're trying to uncook the books as quietly and as quickly as possible, and they're most likely getting ready for a gold revaluation in 2026. So even the US government is in a rush to stockpile gold. Now, I want you to understand that this trend from
and that's what Mandrell just said. But Mandrell saw the video already. But Mandrell already knows. You guys got to understand something about Brother Mandrell. Brother Mandrell is a former Green Beret. He was on A teams. And the U.S. Army Special Forces, their job is to topple governments. This is the type of shit that they would do. So if anyone knows, about this sort of thing, the dark side of it, it's going to be Brother Mandrell. You know what I mean? Thank you for your service there, or Airborne. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. And here's the thing: the common folks are just trying to keep the lights on, man. Trying to get food in their babies' bellies, and trying to find work because they're getting laid off and/or fired, right? So they don't have time to look at this. This is when we talk about blood in the streets. I think this time around, it might not be as bad as the Great Depression, but it's going to be more impactful, perhaps, than the Great Depression, because that gap between the have-yachts and the have-nots, right, is only going to continue to do this. I don't know if there'll be like a great reset and kind of bring us back together. I don't know if it'll bring back a middle class. I don't know how global production and all that manufacturing is going to look on the other side of this. Man, I got a lot of questions. Brother Michael, you have any ideas on that, man? Because I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. Brother Michael is saying bought some gold and silver in 2020, up 60% over 5 years. Man, great move. It was suppressed by major banks using derivative shorts and bullion banks who have outstanding contacts. They don't want to slant, can't fill. So, all right, there we go. Now we know who was holding the value of gold back, bro. Wow. Like, listen to this. How do you lease gold? That's my thing too, man. My thing is, I buy gold, I buy silver. I gotta have it in my hand. I gotta have it. I gotta have it. I'm not gonna give you money to store my gold. Nah, we're gonna have a problem. Cause it's like, is it any gold in there? Nah, I gotta have it in hand. And I have noticed the price has gone up. Anything with gold in it, the price has gone up. Muammar Gaddafi tried to stockpile gold, and he was deposed shortly after his plans became public. And that's from Brother Pitney. Yeah, that's what got Gaddafi done, among other things. But maybe that was the real reason. It's funny, like, they didn't have a problem with what he was doing and how he was doing it. And then all of a sudden they found out he's trying to stockpile gold. They're like, I'll go get him. And they got him. You know what I mean? They got him. And Brother Michael, like, I can answer a lot of that, just not in this chat, but we can talk. Hey, bro, I'm definitely going to holler at you, man. Thank you. And I understand. Trust me. I understand. And I'm watching this too, bro. Like, we're doing a lot. You know what I mean? My brother and I have finally done the paperwork. So my brother has started a consultation business. So so I'm working with him. He's basically bought me out. So I basically, I work for him now. Shout out to my brother. And yeah, I'm doing all sorts of consulting, and we're doing like the stuff over here, like of course the dating coaching stuff. But I also do entertainment stuff, like as far as comedy and promotions and promoting, producing, writing. We have teams of people to handle all that. But I don't mess around in the financial world. So I don't know. We might have to get ourselves together and put together a team. Maybe we could talk to some people like Brother Michael, Brother Pitt, and whoever else. Mandrill, you too. Try to find some names and start doing some conferences. Because the one thing I know, when the economy turns bad, bro, when it gets bad and people start losing money, folks go out there and they do everything they can to educate themselves on how to not get in this trap again, which means they're going to want to go in business for themselves. And there's opportunity out there to help folks get themselves started, even if it's just telling them the differences between a DBA, LLC, S Corp, and C Corp. Even if you're just doing that, that has value. Because people want to be able to structure themselves to where they don't feel the pain, because the 1% don't really feel the pain, but everyone else does. But I mean, that's just a quick aside. This is the way my mind works. I'm just kind of thinking, I'm definitely going to be looking at doing some seminars. Like we're doing stuff already, but I might have to try to figure out a way to do the financial thing. But anyway, back to the story. Brother Michael was saying there's just something about something about, what's that? Clinking 2 silver ounce coins together, right? Clink, clink, clink. That paper contracts can't ever give you, and that's a fact, bro. That's a fact. Those little, you can buy little gold bars, little silver bars, bro. It's nothing like just holding it. Like, this is heavy, right? This is heavy. And like it pays by the ounce. So I feel you on that, bro. I feel you on that. It's just, if you're going to get into gold and silver, make sure you get the physical product. Don't have someone else say, oh, here's a piece of paper. Your gold is fine over here in my vault. Trust me. Nah, go get your gold. Go get it. Get it in coin, get it in bar form. However you got to get it. Go get it. Let's continue.
Dollars to gold is very unlikely for the again. So the U.S. government would have to they'd have to do all these things. They have to balance their budget so that they don't have to print trillion whole again. But do you think that, realistically speaking, that the U.S. government's going to do this? And I would say, of course not, which means that the de-dollarization process is going to continue and the price of gold is just going to continue to increase. Now, I just want to cover the price of gold. So here's the price of gold over the past 1 year. It's around $3,600 a troy ounce right now. And it's just my opinion, it's just a matter of time before it crosses $3,700, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 a troy ounce. So is it going to go up? Is it going to go up in a straight line? And my answer is, of course it's not. But it's just a matter of time before it hits those numbers. Because the M2 money supply is just expanding. It's at record highs, which is to nobody's surprise. I mean, this is just how the game or the system works. Essentially, as more dollars are printed, it's going to require more worthless dollars to buy an ounce of gold. And here's a 1-year chart of the money supply. If you take a look at the chart, it looks like steady and solid growth, at least to me. And I'm expecting that there is more of this to come. And then I want to point out that the Federal Reserve is getting ready to cut interest rates on September 17th. And I'm telling you, that's not going to be the last of it. It's not going to be the last of the rate cuts. There's going to be many more to come. So the majority.
Before he continues, man, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I absolutely fear rate cuts. I've been saying this for well over a year now. I think that the Fed rate should be in double digits, somewhere between 12 and 15%. That's where I would like to see it, And then people are like, man, you crazy. I'm like, nah, bro, because that would have given us more cushion to kind of ease the market. So like if the Fed has shot the rate up to 15%, let's say the Fed rate was at 15% right now. we wouldn't really be worried about inflation, and we'll be able to start easing, like quantitative easing process, and start dropping, lowering interest rates. You can go down to like from 15%, you go down to like, 11.5, 12%. And it's like, cool, people be happy because interest rates coming down. But now we do it. Where are we at? 6 something right now? We drop interest rates before you know it, we're down around 3% again. Interest rates through the roof. And people coming out of the dollar. This is like the perfect storm. So people, y'all need to be trying to figure out how you can buy yourself some gold and silver. Look it up, do your own search, guys. Get out there, and I know folks ain't got a lot of money, man, but I mean, shit, if you gotta go wash some cars or something, or make a lemonade stand, or figure out a way, go drive Uber, figure out a way to get yourself a few $100s here, a few $100s there, and start buying yourself some gold coins. I think this might be the time to do it, because as the price of gold continues to go up, at some point that it's going to really like shoot up, especially when inflation happens or something horrific happens, like some sort of attack or something like that. I think gold is going to go through the roof. No one wants dollars anymore. No one wants dollars. Now, this is bad for America, and a lot of folks are like, oh, passport bros are probably like, oh, man, I better get my last trip into the DR. I better get my last trip into Thailand or Colombia. Those places are always going to be struggling, and they're going to want whatever currency comes down there. So I wouldn't worry about that, passport bro. You know what I mean? But definitely be worried about your money and try to hedge this thing somehow. Cause it is, man, it's crazy. And Brother Michael's saying M2 finally going parabolic, so gold will eventually adjust to account for it in similar moves. Bro, I'm telling you, bro, like figure out a way to go out there, guys, and get your hands on some gold and get your hands on some silver. Figure it out, man. What's the worst case scenario? You buy yourself a few $1,000s. You buy yourself a few ounces of gold. Hustle up 10,000 or whatever. Go out there and buy you some 10 or so ounces of gold or whatever it is. I don't know if you'll be able to get 10, but if you can get 10 ounces of gold at the current rate, and let's say the gold just plateaus, you ain't lose nothing. Still gold. It still has value, right? You ain't lose nothing. People are like, no, go buy Bitcoin. Okay, try it if you want to. You can't hold Bitcoin in your pocket, right? And Brother Mandrell saying all of the current inflation is making it harder to afford gold and silver. Facts. You see what I'm saying? The difference between the have-yachts and the have-nots? The have-nots, they ain't going to have no extra money to get gold. That's what I'm saying. Figure out a way to dig down and find a few $100s here or there to get you into some gold. When they cut rates, it'll be even more difficult. That's a fact. That's the fact. I'm saying inflation is going to wreak havoc this time around. Let's continue.
Majority of people believe that there's going to be 2 rate cuts this year. So there's 3 more Fed meetings left for 2025. But if I had to guess, I would expect higher inflation prints. So maybe we're just going to get 1 interest rate cut this year. But regardless, there's going to be more rate cuts in 2026. And that's actually part of the plan. That's what you're actually going to see in the SEP. Okay, so we have an easier monetary policy that's right around the corner. And then we're most likely going to have quantitative easing to look forward to in 2026. So both of these, you have rate cuts, you have QE. They're both going to be nice tailwinds for the price of gold. Now, here's another big thing that most people need to understand, especially if you think that gold is in an overbought stage right now. And that's preventing you from picking up some gold. Okay, so
Man, y'all see that Costco is limiting gold bar purchases as demand surges, a 2-bar limit? Man, I'm about to do what I got to do. I'm buying some more.
Now, demand from central banks and governments, they're pushing up the price of gold, right? But retail demand, at least in the US, has not even started yet. Gold, based off historical averages, makes up about 2% of people's portfolios, but right now it's around 0.5%. But I just want to point this out to you. Like, you've probably seen these headlines too. I know that gold flies off the shelves or even the online shelves at Costco. But you'll know when retail has really FOMO'd in and driven up the price of gold faster than it should have risen. I mean, you're going to know when you see lines out the door of coin shops, crazy high premiums. You're going to know when there's, between you and strangers, when you're having small talk about gold, these are going to be some of the overbought signals. But right now, there's none of that. So essentially what I'm saying is that if you want to hop into a gold position, start a gold position right now, I don't think you're too late to the game. I think it's still going to be early for you, this whole de-dollarization process. Again, it's a process, it's not a one-time event. Yeah, would it have been better to get into gold a month ago, 6 months ago, 6 years ago? The answer is absolutely. But I think it's early, and I think there's plenty of money to be made, and also this is a great way to protect yourself from inflation. Listen,
And see, that's the key, man. Yeah, you want to make some money. And again, this is not a financial platform. This is we're not a financial YouTube channel over here. We're not, giving you advice. I'm just putting this information out here. I'm pretty sure this brother's not giving you advice. He's not telling you to buy gold. We're just having a conversation. But it's protecting yourself. It's a hedge. It's a hedge against the dollar, right? We got to find a way to hedge that. And again, wealthy folks, it ain't nothing for them to take a few $100,000 or a few $1 million and just increase their gold position and then do the same thing with their silver position or whatever. It's not a big thing. But for us down here, the rest of us, we're gonna have to make sacrifices just to get our hands on a few ounces of gold. We're gonna have to make some sacrifices. So I suggest you guys start making them sacrifices, man. Start cutting back on stuff where you can. Get some money up, man, and get you some gold in the house, bro. Because if something were to go wrong, you can pack up your gold along with your ammo and your weapons, and you can move out. You can move out smartly, right? You can pack up your valuables and go, but you ain't packing up no Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like I said, I think Bitcoin is cool if you got the money to play with. It's a gamble. There's a lot of people came up, but just like Bitcoin shot up, Bitcoin can shoot down, and it can shoot back up again. So just keep that in mind. It's like, playing Bitcoin is like going to the casino.
I'm just trying to warn people that there's going to be a lot of negative consequences with this whole de-dollarization process. Inflation's going to get worse, like much worse. Wealth inequality is going to get worse. Again, that one too, like much worse. Financial slavery is going to get worse. I just hope that people protect themselves, financially speaking, and gold is a good option to do so. So please subscribe. I'll keep you updated on this whole situation.
Definitely subscribe. Check him out, man. Down to Marco to this brother, man. And his links are in the description below. Please go over there, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, man, over there. But we do have more. We got 2 more videos. We wanna, 2 more YouTubers are out here talking about this stuff, man. Brother Michael, you're right, man. Rich folks, it's not that rich folks identify it first. Their people identify, like the real wealthy folks. They got folks who watch the trends, and their people tell them this is the trend, and then they act accordingly. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, rich people identify the trends first and move accordingly. The public is always too late to the party. But it sounds like, and Brother Michael is saying here, gold should perform well over the next 5 years. I won't be surprised if it hits 10K by 2030. Man, that's a huge jump, bro. That's a huge jump. Damn, I want to say back in 2009, we have to pull out a chart, but I want to say gold was like 1,500. I don't know. We have to pull out a chart, but that's crazy, man. Could you imagine that? All the way up to 10K. And it's something that has value, unlike, like I said, not that I'm beating up on, Bitcoin, but, like, bro, I don't know, man. I think AI could destroy the blockchain, right? So, like, it really is. 5X. I've heard that before, Brother Michael. Yes. Usually in 10-year cycles, they go 5X. Yes, I've heard that before from people who are in the world, like financial folks. And they weren't even pushing gold. They were just, it was a matter of fact. It was like an off comment, like, yeah, gold normally does this. Silver normally does that. It goes in like these 5-year cycles. So yeah, shout out to you. I've definitely heard that before. Man, it is something to think about, guys. This is something that, really should be paying attention to. Do what you can to kind of help yourself. Again, hopefully you make some money, but the big thing is it's like an insurance policy, bro. You're hedging against the dollar. You're hedging against the dollar, bro. So yeah, 10-year cycles, man. They go 10-year cycles and they go 5X in that period. You can go back and look at the charts. Don't take our word for it. Go back and look at the charts and just see how gold has performed. Go all the way back to the 70s. Go back to 1960. Look at gold, and then you can see when it got decoupled from the dollar, what happened. Right? So just go back and look at that. So Jetspring Singh, Minority Mindset. Let's check this out. He was talking about the U.S. dollar is quietly falling. And this is a video from earlier in the week, about 3 days ago. And here's how the rich are escaping first. So let's look at what he's talking about. And again, these are two very successful YouTube channels. They both have a couple million subscribers each. Minority Mindset. He's always talking about real estate and buying homes and flipping homes and financial literacy and stuff like that. I like what this brother is doing. He does a good job. I really enjoy his content. So let's check him out.
The United States dollar became the world's reserve currency back in 1944, and that move made the United States of America the world's economic superpower. Now, one of the many reasons why the world trusted the United States dollar is because our dollars were backed by physical gold. Let me show you why that matters. The United States government generates revenue from tax dollars from taxpayers. And then they go out and they spend this money. Where do they spend this money? They might spend this money on healthcare, welfare, infrastructure, military, and everything else. Now, you might think that because the United States government is so large and powerful that we're not going to spend more than we generate from taxes, but we do not run a balanced budget. What that means is the United States government generates these tax dollars and then they spend all of that money and then some because we go out and finance that additional spending through debt. This is where you need to understand where these additional dollars come from that the United States government spends. The United States government can borrow money from people like you and me. That's called a treasury, meaning we lend money to the United States government in exchange for interest. Foreign countries around the world are lending money to the United States government because they trust the United States government and they want to be paid back with interest. And if the United States government cannot get enough money from regular people or foreign countries, then they will go to the central bank in the United States called the Federal Reserve Bank, and then the Fed will then print that money and give it in the form of a loan to the United States government. And I should let you know that although they're called the Federal Reserve Bank, they're actually not a bank because you and I can't go there to deposit money. They're not a reserve because they're not sitting on any cash reserves, and they're not federal. It says so on their website. They're not a part of the federal government.
Y'all see how confusing this is? Y'all hear this? And everything he's saying is spot on. Like, again, I'm no expert, but I do believe I can grasp the fundamentals, right? The Federal Reserve is not controlled by the American government. It's not controlled by Congress, not controlled by judicial, like the Supreme Court, and it's not controlled by the executive. But the current administration wants to change that. They want to have control over the Fed. So this is why, all this stuff comes into play, right? All this stuff comes into play in the way that we just print money into existence. The banks loan it out, or the Fed gives the loan to the government. The government spends it. We do, bro, the amount of money we spend is not sustainable, right? The amount of money we spend is not sustainable, bro. $37 trillion, man. 37 trillion. $37 trillion that's just the current debt. And we're going into a cycle where the budget for defense is going to be $1 trillion just for 1 year. Our defense budget is going to be $1 trillion. So let's continue.
But they have the ability to create this money out of thin air. Now, you need to pay attention to this. When our dollar is backed by physical gold, there's a limit to how much money the Federal Reserve Bank can print. Why? Because if we want to print more of these dollars, we need more wealth, we need more collateral, and the collateral is the physical gold. This gold-backed money helps to preserve the value of the United States dollar because it limits how much money we can create out of thin air from the Federal Reserve Bank, but it also slows down economic growth because our economy runs on spending. The more money you spend, the more money somebody else makes. And in our economic system, the largest spender in the United States economy is not you, me, Amazon, or Tesla. It is the United States government. And so when the United States government spends more money on infrastructure, they hire more contractors, they spend more money on research and development, those are money going into the hands of businesses' pockets, going into the hands of people's pockets. So when the United States government spends more money, it grows the economy. And I mean, realistically speaking, if we could just print money out of thin air, could you imagine how reliant the economy would be on the United States government? Because then the government could just print money to fund infrastructure projects, print money to fund welfare checks, print money to fund whatever they wanted. And that's kind of what's happening. In the early
That's exactly what's happening. Exactly. Brother Michael, fun fact, income taxes got created the year after the Federal Reserve was created. Someone had the plan. This was a play. Someone was like, oh, this is how we can do it. So basically what Minority Mindset just told us is that the American economy, which we all know, is all about spending. It's all about debt. And if no one, and by no one, I mean, if no nation on the globe, if no nation on planet Earth buys American debt, then we can no longer just print the money because it becomes worthless. You see where this is going. So no more spending from the feds means no more money going into creating those roads, no more money going to the contractors, no more money going to the engineers and developers and managers, and then all the way down to the guy who's digging the ditches. No more money. It all stops. You see what I'm saying? 1920, what happened? Great Depression hit, everything stopped. Right? There was no money. The banks had no money to loan. That was it. No more credit. Everything in America runs on credit. If you wanted to start a business, man, you had to have your own money to do it. This is insane. Let's continue.
In the 1970s, the United States government had borrowed so much money. We had taken on so much debt, not just from the Federal Reserve Bank, but from countries around the world, that countries were getting concerned about the United States government's ability to pay back that debt because we had so many expenses and we had so much debt. So now these foreign countries and these large institutions said, you know what? You keep the dollar, just give us back our physical gold. And so gold levels were dropping in the United States because everybody who had lent money to the United States said, just give us back our physical gold. And that was when, in 1971, President Richard Nixon stopped that. He severed the tie between the United States dollar and physical gold.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
Well, there you have it. You see, we weren't lying about that. It was Nixon who came off the gold standard. And correct me if I'm wrong, any historians that are out there, but I believe the reason Nixon did that is because he ran out of money to fund the war in Vietnam, and he needed to unhitch the dollar so we can just print the money so he can continue, I don't know, Operation Linebacker or wherever the hell we were at that point in the war. So I don't think that there's going to be a way around this, man. I think now that America has become toxic, right? The dollar has become toxic. No one wants the dollar. Everybody wants to buy in the gold, looking to hedge the dollar. It's going to be a problem. The one thing I think that saves America, and this is what George Gammon was talking about, is all business pretty much is done in dollars. So you're going to have to buy up as many dollars as you can to pay out all your debt that's in dollars before you can start your debt in some other currency. So keep your eye on that. So it's not going to happen overnight. But if people start doing that, like, George Gammon said this on PBD's podcast a couple of years ago. It was like the beginning of the end will be will be signaled by a rush to get dollars. People will be trying to get as many dollars as they can so they can pay out all their debt that's in dollars, and then they can move on to another currency. So let's keep our eyes on that.
If you notice what he said this was temporary, and here we are 54 years later, and the dollar is still not tied back to physical gold. But that move to sever the tie between the United States dollar and physical gold started to create concerns about inflation, because if you can just print this money out of thin air, and now this money isn't backed by physical gold, it's just backed by a promise that the United States government has value. It's backed by a promise that the United States government is going to continue to pay the bills. but it's still there. It's still the world's reserve currency. But you can start to see how some people started to get concerned about the value of the dollar and inflation. But those concerns were relatively quiet after the 1970s until 2008.
Before we get into that, Brother Michael, I didn't know this, bro. How did they get out of the Great Depression? That's the question. The answer, after the gold confiscation, the government bumped the value of gold on the balance sheets from $20 to $35 an ounce and used the capital gains to make banks whole. I did not know that. Wow. You want to talk about pulling a rabbit out the hat. So what are they going to do this time? Because it looks like we're headed that way.
After the housing market crashed and the economy was in free fall in 2008, the Federal Reserve Bank unleashed something called quantitative easing. And this quantitative easing was essentially a fancy way of the Federal Reserve Bank saying we're going to print $1 trillion out of thin air and we're going to inject this money into the economy to get the economy moving. That means the Federal Reserve Bank printed more money, lent it to the United States government. The government then spent that money hiring people, building contracts, giving money to businesses to keep the economy moving again. And after the quantitative easing started happening in 2008, that's when people started to get concerned about the value of the dollar again, because if you can just print this money out of thin air, what is the real value of that dollar? And it's a valid argument, because if you can just print this money out of thin air, why do we have to pay taxes in the first place? Why do we have to work for the money? Can't the government just print the money and give it to us? But by 2012, it looked like things were okay. The economy started moving again, and the dollar was still strong, and concerns about the dollar started calming down. And then came 2020, and things got flipped upside down again. Now, I do want to remind you that for those of you that are investors or want to become investors, I put together a free investing masterclass where I'll walk you through how you can get started as an investor.
Hey, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I don't know how much it costs for his master class in investing or whatever. Look into the price. If you can afford it, support the brother, because he's putting out some good information here, man. I would say support the brother if you can afford it. I know times are tight and it's gonna get tighter, but I like to try to support the YouTube content creators that, you know, I like to, when I utilize their content and, you know, we have these conversations, I do my best to try to help. Either, you know, like, share, subscribe. But if you can, you know, we have some people out here who are sitting on a little bit. If you can, check out the investment course and then let us know, was it worth it? Like, hey, was it worth it? How much did it cost? And of course, you know, if it's thousands of dollars, I don't know about that. But, you know, if it's a reasonable price, check it out. This is a really good content creator. Definitely go. And if you haven't already, go and subscribe to his channel and go through his library of content, man. He has some really good stuff, man, especially on flipping houses and, you know, cash flow and what to look for inspections. He was really good about the inspection stuff. That's the reason I landed on his page and stayed. The stuff that he was saying, like when you go to buy a home and where you got to go and crawl and who you hire and this and that. And he took a couple losses and he explained what happened, and, you know, really check out this brother. But let's get back to it.
And how you can find hidden investment opportunities before the crowd, before they hit the headlines on CNBC and Reddit. These are the same strategies that the team at my firm uses when we are analyzing investment opportunities. So if you want to watch this investing masterclass, it's completely free. All you have to do is register. I have the link for you down in the description below. And when you sign up, you're also going to get Market Briefs, my newsletter for investors, for free as a bonus. So I have the link for you down in the description. When the pandemic,
bro, it's free. Check that out. That's the best price ever, man. I'm signing up for that.
Pandemic hit in 2020, the economy was shut down and the stock market saw its fastest sell-off since the Great Depression. And that was when the Federal Reserve Bank started printing money again. This time they did not call it quantitative easing, but it was essentially the same thing. It's estimated that the Fed printed around $5 trillion to stimulate the economy and keep it moving after that pandemic hit. Now, it can be hard for our brains to really process and understand how much $5 trillion of money printing really is, but to help you understand, in 20
Right. To understand how much 5 trillion is, try to wrap your brain around 37.5 trillion, which is where we're coming up on. I think brother Pitney, he gave us the 2008 number, 37.43 trillion. So we're coming up on $37.5 trillion. Yeah, wrap your old nugget around that.
2019, it took the country of the United States of America, about 300 some million people, working for 1 year, 365 days, to produce about $21 trillion of wealth. The economy in the United States was about $21 trillion large, and then the Federal Reserve Bank printed about a quarter of that, $5 trillion, with the push of a button. And this new money printing is what got many people now concerned about the value of the dollar again starting in 2020 because of what the Federal Reserve Bank did. A quarter of that, $5 trillion of wealth. The economy in the
I
United
just want to back it
to
up.
produce about
I want
20
to back it up, guys. My bad.
country of the United States of America, about 300 some million people working for 1 year, 365 days to produce about $21 trillion of wealth. The economy in the United States was about $21 trillion large, and then the Federal Reserve Bank printed about a quarter of that, $5 trillion, with the push of a button. And this new money printing is what got many people now concerned about the value of the dollar again starting in 2020 because of what the Federal Reserve Bank was doing. But interestingly, during that same time, many economists were saying, no, all this money printing is not going to cause inflation. In fact, it will probably cause deflation. Inflation is when the value of the dollar becomes weaker, causing the prices of things to go up. Deflation is the opposite, where the prices of things are going down because the value of the dollar is ultimately more strong and it can buy you more stuff. Well, it turns out there was inflation, and when we started to see that inflation in 2021, that was when the Federal Reserve Bank went out and said that this inflation that we're seeing is just a transitory problem. It is a temporary problem. Now, here we are in 2025, 5 years after the pandemic money printing. Nearly 2 decades after the quantitative easing money printing after the 2008 crash. About 5 decades after the dollar was taken off of the gold standard, and 81 years after the United States dollar became the world's reserve currency, and people are starting to get more concerned about the value and health of the United States dollar.
Which is why they're going out buying gold. Right? This again, kicking the can down the road, kicking the can down the road. Eventually, you're gonna run out of road. You're gonna run out of road. I mean, that is how it goes, people. Eventually, you're gonna run out of road. What did Forrest Gump say when Jenny was throwing rocks at the house? Right? She was throwing house at she's like, what did Forrest Gump say? Sometimes there aren't enough rocks. What did he say? Sometimes there just aren't enough rocks, and that's where we are right now. We have been kicking the can down the road, printing money, and guess what? You just can't do that forever. Now it's time to pay the price. Pay the piper. It is what it is.
Guardian recently published, trust in the United States dollar is eroding. The question isn't if the dollar will lose supremacy, it's when. JP Morgan Chase Bank said de-dollarization is the United States dollar losing its dominance, and BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, says that a declining dollar means more international exposure. And on that note, and kind of interestingly, the CEO of BlackRock recently did an interview where he said that the United States dollar could be replaced by Bitcoin because of all of our national debt. So now that you understand what's going on, let me talk about what this actually means. Does this mean you should panic? No. Does this mean you should come to a rash conclusion? No. Does this mean the dollar is going to crash tomorrow? No. It means you need to understand strategically how to allocate your money. Now,
here's the thing too, man. Like Fink talking about the Bitcoin can become the U.S. national currency. Man, that's computer stuff, man. AI can break the blockchain. I mean, wouldn't that give every government on the planet, our enemies and allies alike, a reason to try to break the blockchain? Could you imagine if somehow you backdoor blockchain so you have an infinite amount of money because AI figured out a way to do it? And people are like, well, AI, it's impossible to do that. It's impossible for humans to do it. AI could do it. That's my biggest problem with Bitcoin. That's my biggest problem with cryptocurrency, bro. AI will be smart enough to break it. Now, that means that AI would also be smart enough to come up with something better. But what happens in the short term? Right? Gold, man. I'm telling you, stick with gold.
for full transparency and full disclaimer, I still think the United States is the best place to be and the best place to invest your money. But we can start to study what some rich people, some wealthy institutions, and what some of the big banks are doing to diversify themselves as well, because we can learn from others. My team and I have been studying some of the largest asset managers, the largest investment institutions in the world, and we saw a theme that there are 4 places that investors are looking to diversify their money if they have concerns about the dollar. Where are they? Number 1 is physical.
And look, I said gold and I said real estate, right? Foreign businesses, I didn't think about that, but yeah, if you can get into the right emerging market, you're gonna make some money. Bitcoin, man, that's a big question mark for me. Man, I just don't know about Bitcoin.
Gold. Number 2, it's in real estate. Number 3 is in foreign businesses. And number 4 is Bitcoin. So let me go down this one by one to help you understand, starting with physical gold. It takes time, effort, and labor to mine physical gold, and there's a limited supply of physical gold in the world, and gold has been the historic money. And so that's why some investors that are concerned about the dollar, they're concerned about inflation, they will buy gold when they have those types of concerns. Now, another reason that gold prices have been booming over the last few years is because there are some countries around the world known as the BRICS nations, BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries have been working to potentially move away from the United States dollar and create their own currency that could be backed by physical gold. So we've been seeing more central banks around the world start to buy up more physical gold as a way to strengthen their currency. And so there's a lot of reasons why investors have been going to gold post-pandemic, but it all stems from concerns about the United States dollar. But I do want you to understand that nothing goes straight up in price, including physical gold. And this is somebody telling you this who's been buying gold for a number of years now. Let me just show you what I mean. This is a
Oh, here we go. We were talking about that too. Like I haven't seen the chart. That one goes back to '06, so we can see where gold was. But yeah, brother Mike was like, real estate is unfortunately overvalued as a class, an asset class, at the moment, and that's true. And why is it overvalued? Because hedge fund money, institutional money, the 1%ers came in and bought up all the single family homes, trying to make everybody a renter in America. Right? They messed the market up. Right. And then interest rates were super, super low coming out of the pandemic thing. So it's going to change. I mean, we're like down here in Florida, bro, I see it. I see it big time, bro. Like I'm watching the values drop. And there's so many people who are, like, man, I'm so rich. I'm so wealthy. My house is worth this and that. And now, and they've borrowed against that, HELOCs and all that kind of stuff. They borrowed against their home. And then the value of their home is starting to drop. And banks are looking at that and freezing their HELOCs and all this kind of stuff. And people are living on that money. So this is like the real estate stuff, at least down here in Florida. Bro, when I tell you there's blood in the streets, when I say the defecation is definitely smacked up against the oscillator, that's what's going on down here. Add to that the insurance issues because people can't get insured. Add to that people who are working, a lot of people are underemployed or unemployed, right? And add to that the Doge effect when all these government jobs got whacked and all these, these corporations are telling people to come back to the offices in New York and Atlanta, in DC and wherever, LA. Florida is hurting right now. But let's have a look at this chart.
Chart showing gold prices, and what you can see is that gold prices boomed after the 2008 crash because everyone was concerned about the United States dollar collapsing, so people looked for a way to protect their money, and the way they did that was by buying gold, and gold prices shot up. But then by 2012 it became more clear that the dollar was safe, and people didn't want a safe investment, they wanted to take more risks. So that's when they dumped gold and went back to normal investing, and you saw gold prices fall from 2012 to 2013, 14, 15, 16, all the way until 2020 when the pandemic hit. So it took 8 years for gold prices to recover after 2012. The reason why I'm telling you this is because if concerns about the dollar stay, well then that can help the price of gold continue to rise. But if concerns about the dollar start to go down because things start to stabilize, well then people might start ditching gold, looking for better investments, which could cause gold prices to fall. And so you have to understand that nothing goes straight up, including the prices of gold. And when I invest in gold, again, I can't tell you what to do. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a random guy on YouTube. But when I invest in gold, I don't look at gold as an investment. I look at it as a way of saving hard money, because my theory is if I save $10,000 in my backyard and I save $10,000 worth of physical gold today, the gold may have more buying power, or I believe it'll have more buying power because of inflation. But that's my thoughts. So if you are interested,
Peter Schiff thinks the same thing. Same thing. You can go ahead and borrow 10,000 US, bury 10,000 US dollars in your backyard, right? And then, I'll bury $10,000 worth of gold in my backyard. We give it 3 years and dig it up and see which has more value, which has more purchasing power, which commodity do people want more. And bro, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. You know what I mean? Brother Michael, I want my home to not appreciate since I'd rather have a lower value for property tax and insurance premium calculations. Don't need increased equity since it's paid off. and didn't plan to sell or relocate, bro, if you got your house paid in the shade, man, Don DeMarco to you, Don DeMarco to Brother Michael.
Dom DeMarco.
And that makes sense. So this correction for people like Brother Michael is like, cool, no problem. It's really, he's going to be saving money. Because down here, like, insurance premiums are insane if you can get it. And then HOAs are going out of, parabolic with HOAs. I was talking, we had an interview on Spoken and Smoke like we did last Friday, and we were talking to a local real estate broker, actually. And she was telling us some horror stories about some HOAs. Like, down here, there's like some new laws forcing HOAs to have X amount of money available, like on hand, and it's causing the HOA to bill the homeowners, and that's called assessment. So they'll make an assessment, say, hey, you have to pay the HOA $60, $70, $80, $150,000. We need that money now, type stuff. And a lot of people don't have it, and it's like, yo, she was telling she sold a condo to a young girl. This was some years back, and the HOA, it's like a 1-bedroom condo in a nice part of town. The HOA was $1,500 a month. Just the HOA. About a 1-bedroom condo was probably $250,000, $315,000 or whatever, because that was the peak. So whatever that is, right, it's $1,500 on top of whatever your mortgage is. So the mortgage is going to be what? It's going to land somewhere around $2,000, $2,100, somewhere in there between $2,000 and $2,500 a month. Plus that 15, plus you're going to need some insurance. Insane.
In gold, just understand what moves gold prices up versus what moves gold prices down. Number 2 is physical real estate. I like real estate. And the reason why I like real estate is because unlike gold, this real estate can produce income and it has real value. So the reason why a lot of investors are turning to real estate as another hedge is because real estate is a hard asset. It's something that you can see, feel, and touch. When you own real estate, you own the bricks, you own the land, you own the windows. Versus when it is physical gold, that gold is just sitting there looking back at you. This real estate can then work to produce an income. So the advantage of real estate is you own something physical, and if the value of the dollar goes down, then ultimately the price of the real estate would go up along with the rental prices. And if, hypothetically, worst case scenario, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but just stick with me for the purposes of this example, if the dollar were to collapse, which I don't think is happening, but if that were to happen and the currency became chickens, you could charge rent in chickens instead of United States dollars, because, well, that real estate still has value that you can give in whatever form of money, currency that you want. Number 3 is foreign businesses. And what that means now is instead of investing your money into United States companies, which are really affected by the United States dollar, some investors and institutions have been looking at foreign companies, foreign stocks. Now, investing in a different economy can be difficult, especially if we don't know how to actually go about doing it. But there are much simpler ways by using the United States stock market to get exposure to funds that are giving you ownership into those foreign companies. For example, again, I'm not telling you what to invest in. Investing has risks. You're never guaranteed to make money when you invest. In fact, you will lose money at some point, so make sure you always do your own due diligence and never blindly trust a random guy on YouTube. But there are ETFs out there. These are funds that you can buy in the United States to give you exposure to foreign economies. So a couple examples, again, I'm not telling you what to invest in, are VEA and IEMG. VEA is an ETF created by Vanguard. That's one of the larger investment institutions in the world. And this is an ETF that gives you exposure to developed economies outside of the United States. So the more established countries around the world, you can get exposure to those economies by investing in this fund, which owns stocks in those developed economies. An alternative is IEMG. This is an ETF created by iShares, again, a large investment institution backed by BlackRock. And this ETF invests in emerging market stocks. So now we're not talking about the developed economies, we're talking about the smaller economies, smaller countries that are growing, more risk for more potential return. Because now not only could you see the companies grow, but the countries could also grow, which means, yes, you could see a lot of potential upside, but more risk because it's not as secure and safe as the United States economy. It's not as secure and safe as the United States military. It's not as secure as safe as the United States dollar, because still the United States dollar is the world's reserve currency. But if you are interested in diversification, that's something that you can consider. And number 4 is in Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is the newest asset class. This is something that was created that is interpreted to be a digital asset, kind of like physical gold. However, we've seen a lot of volatility with Bitcoin. We've seen a lot of Bitcoin crashes over the last 10 or so years, which means, yes, people look at Bitcoin as a digital gold. People use Bitcoin as a way to protect themselves against inflation or the falling dollar. However, it hasn't been around the way gold has, or real estate has, or investing in stocks has. And so understand that, and understand that it comes with additional risk, more potential upside, more potential risk. And your job as an investor is to be able to manage the risk, manage the upside, and find the right investment opportunities for you. And that,
Like I said, bro, it's like going into the casino, man. I mean, gold, real estate, you own something tangible, you have it in your hands, or you're in it. You're living in it. You know, investments, you got some extra money, you want to invest in some stuff, man, great. You want to buy some treasury bills, you want to buy, some CDs or whatever, that's cool. You want to buy something, talking about managing your risk. You want to invest in secure markets, you want to invest in emerging markets, great. You got extra money, do what you want to do. Bitcoin, it's just a gamble, bro. It's a double down. It's a split. It's 2 splits, couple double downs, bro, on your max bet. That's how I look at it. Like if you're out there, like if I got a $10 bet out there and I'm playing blackjack and I get 2 8s and I split those and I get a 2 and a 3, so I had to double each of those. It's a $10 bet. I ain't worried about it, man. That $10 bet went up to what? $10, $20, $40, right? It went up to $40. Cool. But if you're betting thousands, that 10,000 bet went up to 40,000, or you betting millions, that 10 million bet went up to, 10 million went up to 40 million. It just changes the way your you know what I'm saying? Your heart rate, your blood pressure just changed drastically. It's a gamble. That's all. I just look at it as a gamble. It is what it is. Some people are doing really well on that. Some people not so much, but Bitcoin has a lot of growth. So even if Bitcoin was to correct down to 10,000 tomorrow, within a couple of years it's going to go past 200,000, right? You'll probably get to 1 million at some point once everything's, heals and settles or whatnot. So can't go wrong with gold though. Your brother Mike, you're right about Florida, man. It's so many people losing their properties because of the insurance thing. And insurance is just crazy, bro. And like we're in hurricane season now. One storm, guys, I'm telling you, one decent storm come through Florida, which is going to happen during this hurricane season. One good storm, and that's it. Humpty Dumpty didn't just fall off the wall. Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall and a boulder fell on top of him. It's over in Florida. One big storm comes through here and hits anywhere. Hits southern Florida, central Florida, northern Florida, does not matter. One big storm comes through here, it is a wrap. Florida's going to need federal help. They're going to need money from the federal government, and who knows what will happen because FEMA has been gutted. So think about that, guys. Let's continue.
that's one of the things that I talk about in my investing masterclass, is how you can build an investing strategy and find investment opportunities that work for you before the crowd does. So again, if you want to watch the investing masterclass, I have the link for you down in the description. And this is where it's important for you not to panic, but to understand what's happening. Because a lot of people tend to get very emotional, and emotions are the enemy of profits. But any changes that happen are slow moving. And by watching this video, now you are ahead of the vast majority of the population. And this is where I want you to understand what's happening and be able to position yourself in a way that can capitalize on what's happening. But the only way you can do that is by understanding how it creates opportunities. So if you enjoyed this video, please, the best thank you is to share this video with a friend, a colleague, a family member, or a fellow investor. Now, I know.
Make sure y'all do that, because that's what we're doing over here. We definitely going to share that, man. Shout out to him, man. Like, Minority Mindset, he on his business, bro. Shout out to him, Don DeMarco. Y'all know what it is.
Don DeMarco.
Y'all know what it is. And the way he handles his business when it comes to finance and investing and all the stuff that he's talking about, real estate, that's the way I handle that dating stuff. I tell guys, like, look, I just want you to understand what's going on. Here's the deal. Here are the different plays out here. Here's some strategies for you. Take it or leave it. But so I understand where he's coming from. Like, he's just trying to really put people on game. I'm trying to put you on to this financial game. I'm trying to put you onto investing, trying to put you on the real estate, gold, Bitcoin, all that. And the fact that he's offering a masterclass you can sit there and watch for free, definitely take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. So it's one last video. We're not going to watch the whole video. This thing is about 14 minutes. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I did want to bring it up. We'll watch a little bit of this. This is Graham Stephan, big time YouTuber. Again, he has over 5 million followers on his thing. In this video, Trump wants to cancel the IRS. Trump wants to cancel taxes. Huh. Right, word. No one pays taxes, which would absolutely be catastrophic to the financial system here in America. You know, even though our taxes doesn't cover all of our spending, it does cover a lot of it, right? You take away taxes, like, okay, now what? Right? So let's listen to what they have to say, just a little bit of this, and then I'll give my little 2 cents, and then we're out of here.
How about just no tax? The tariffs work out like I think like that could happen.
Do you think it's possible to find a way to eliminate federal taxes?
There is a way.
Can we reform taxes to eliminate the need to file?
There is a chance that the money from tariffs could be so great that it would replace.
What's up, you guys? It's Graham here, and I never thought this would happen, but you gotta hear me out. No more income taxes. That's right. Donald Trump wants to completely eliminate the federal income tax and abolish the IRS, going back to how we operated back in the 1890s when tariff revenue was the main source of income.
Yeah, he said
and
that
if
on the
that were to
campaign
happen, you would owe nothing to the IRS. The April 15th tax filing deadline wouldn't even exist, and you would be able to keep 100% of what you make. So is this actually doable, or is it a horrible idea that'll completely destroy our economy? Well, given all the misinformation floating around on the internet, I thought that we should break down exactly what it'll take to replace income taxes with tariffs, whether or not this is even possible, and what it will realistically take to actually make this happen. Because the truth is, it's pretty surprising. Although before we start,
I don't know, bro. We might have to watch most of this, man. How you gonna pay for $37.5 billion in debt alone, and also continue to fund the government moving forward with just tariffs? That's not possible, bro. It's simply not possible. And we're gonna do away with income tax. Okay, I'm cool with that. How about we replace it with a federal sales tax? And you can raise money that way. Probably raise a whole lot more money. Just federal sales tax on every good, every service in America that anyone inside of America has to pay. Whether you live here, criminal here, you're here illegally, you're here on vacation, doesn't matter. If you're here and you buy something, that tax money, you go buy yourself a bottle of water. Let's say you go somewhere and this bottle of water is $5. So now you got to pay $5.50. That's your federal tax on it, or whatever the tax may be. I don't care if it was $1. It could be $6. You pay $1 on that. Who would care, because they get to keep all the money that they make, right? I've been screaming for something like that forever. Like, why can't we just have a federal sales tax on every good and service and use that to help us fund the government to be way more money? I mean, you guys realize that last lotto, that Powerball, was over $1 trillion? That Powerball, over $1 trillion, man. They raised over $1 trillion. Was it $2 for the ticket? $2 at a time. So, I mean, there's a ton of money to be had with a federal sales tax on every good and service in America. At least that's my take on it. Y'all let me know what y'all think.
I did a ton of research to put this video together and make it as unbiased as possible. So if you appreciate that, please do me a huge favor and hit the like button or subscribe if you haven't done that already. That's all I ask. And as a thank you for doing that, here's a picture of a lizard. So thanks so much. And also big thank you to the Gemini credit card for sponsoring this video, but more on that later. All right, now in order to understand exactly how we could abolish the IRS, let's start here with tariffs. Now, I've said this before, but think of tariffs like an additional tax that's collected anytime you import goods from one country to another. The theory is that if imported goods become more expensive, it encourages people to buy it locally instead, thereby helping out their own economy. Or if they don't buy locally made goods, at least the country gets to collect a little extra revenue in the process. And if that sounds confusing, let's take the example of a television. In this case, imagine that China manufactures and imports televisions to the United States for $100 each. Well, this competes with American-made TVs that cost $200. And as a result, American-made products are seen as more expensive and less competitive. So in an effort to level the playing field, a 100% tariff is placed on Chinese imports of televisions. And all of a sudden, both items now cost the exact same amount when sold in the US, thereby increasing revenues for the government, making American products slightly more appealing, and also making them slightly more competitive. Now, in terms of who pays the tariff, it's not paid by the other country, but instead by the person or company who imports that item to the United States. So in this case, if Google were to import televisions made in China and they bring it into the United States, Google is the company responsible for paying the additional tax, not the country who makes the item. Anyway, this is obviously a stupid example just to illustrate a point, but apply this thinking towards practically anything that you buy, from clothing to batteries to cars and electronics. And all of a sudden, that additional tax makes locally made goods that much better. But is that something that could actually replace the income tax? Well, surprisingly, the way we pay taxes is actually a relatively new concept. In fact, for the first 100 years, the US government funded itself almost entirely from tariff revenue on things like tobacco and alcohol. That's because
I think hopefully he's about to say that's because back then we didn't run these $1 trillion deficits. Right? Back then they paid as they went. Back then the government had a surplus. I hope that's what he's about to say. Brother Michael is saying, man, you need to reset the debt with a gold bump and put in a sales tax. However, the problem is they can't deal with retirement obligations and welfare annuity payments once you devalue the dollar. Yeah, I've heard people talk about this when I talk about, hey, let's, a sales tax on every good and service. Because in my mind, and again, I don't know this world, but to me it seems simple. If we put a federal sales tax on every good and service, I think we would bring in more revenue than we currently bring in with our tax structure, because there's no getting out of it, right? And of course, this thing would be, the more money you spend on something, like if you go buy a house, just like the average home in America right now is around $400,000. So if you buy a house that's $400,000, you would pay the minimum federal sales tax. Let's say it's 4%, 2%, something like that. Let's just say it's 5%. You pay 5%. But if you want to go out and buy a home that's 5 times that, then you will pay 20 or 25% to get that house. You want to go get you the biggest house in America, you might be paying 50, 60% sales tax, a federal sales tax to get that house. Same thing with cars. You want to buy a Bugatti, right? You're going to be paying a whole lot more in federal sales tax than if you went out and bought yourself a Honda Accord. But I don't know. I'm not smart enough to work it out. I need to talk to people who can make me understand why my idea is a bad idea. But I see what you're saying about what to do with the retirement obligations, welfare, and all that. I really think if we're doing the federal sales tax, we will bring in more money than we're currently bringing in with the income tax thing that we do now, the way we do it. But I'm probably wrong.
Back then, the government was relatively small, and when you only spent 3% of your total GDP, it doesn't take much to run the entire country. However, by the late 1800s, policymakers recognized that tariff revenue was a rather inconsistent income source, and it was either great or a bust during times of prosperity or a recession. So when the US entered its civil war, a temporary income tax was implemented to help raise a little bit of money. How much, you might be...
Just like Nixon said with the gold standard, it's going to be temporary. It's a civil war. We need some money to fight this war, so it's going to be temporary. This income tax thing is going to be temporary. That was, 1862? Here we are, 2025, still paying it.
Wondering? Well, back then, it was a 5% tax on incomes between $600 to $5,000, a 7.5% tax on incomes between $5,000 to $10,000, and a 10% tax on everything above that. However, in 1872, taxes were declared to be unconstitutional, so they were repealed. But that didn't last very long, and by World War I, taxes were back on the table as a way to finance the war. Except by this time, income taxes were deemed as a much more reliable and consistent way to raise money for the government that actually helped grow the economy. As a way of doing that, they reduced tariffs, which allowed Americans to spend more money. And with a lower cost of goods coming in from other countries, we really developed as a society. That, of course, continued throughout World War II when Congress created payroll withholding and quarterly tax payments to make sure they'd earn revenue as soon as possible. And over time, the income taxes that were meant to be just temporary eventually stuck. In this case, the more we paid into the system, the more the government grew. The more the government grew, the more reliant they became on that income. and the more we grew the national debt. Put simply,
Yeah. Yeah. This is a good video. This is a good video. Graham Stephan is on his thing. Brother Michael is saying it's because under sound money with a sales tax, the government can only spend based on the money available from collection in the prior period. So annuity payments can't promise what wasn't collected. It's a great point. That's a great point. And we're so entrenched in this system that it's hard to, it'll be really hard. Like everyone's hooked on the money, right? You know, people paying the Social Security and all this other kind of stuff. And it's like someone's going to be left in the cold if we switch over. And that's a great point. Like we don't know how much money we're going to bring in. And I guess my argument to that would be, well, if America's doing America and America's borders are open and people are coming in, you know, there's going to be, basically Americans got to spend to live anyway. So you got that. And then you're going to have folks coming in undocumented, spending, doing what they got to do. You got illegal folks who don't pay taxes anyway, but they're making tons of money in the streets. Now they're paying taxes because whatever they buy goes. I guess my argument would be like, wow, wouldn't it be more money coming in with that sales tax, federal sales tax? But I get your point. You still, if something were to happen and people, for whatever reason, stop buying, if they went to some sort of barter system or something like that, then yeah, there's no money coming in. And, you know, how can you guarantee that you're going to pay for what's been promised, like via these annuities and whatever, for these benefits or whatever down the road, if the money dries up? So that's a good point. It's a really good point.
this is the amount of money the U.S. government borrows and owes in interest to pay for its continual spending. And really, since the late 1800s, we've run at a deficit almost every single year, meaning we spend and borrow way more money than we take in. Now, normally, this isn't seen as that big of a deal when our spending's relatively in line with our gross domestic product. However, once you start borrowing an extra $1 to $5 trillion every single year, for decades, it begins to add up. We have about $1.5 trillion allocated towards Social Security, $1.5 trillion for health and Medicare, $850 billion in interest payments, $750 billion for the military, $500 billion for education, and pretty soon, before you know it, you've spent over $6 trillion while only bringing in $4.3 trillion. This means that we've just spent an extra $1.7 trillion that gets added to our national debt that's now projected to hit $53 trillion by 2035.
That's not sustainable. $53 trillion by 2035. America's going to have to take over the rest of the world. We can't pay that. That means anyone who bought into America, they're not getting their money, i.e. this is why all these these countries are buying gold. We got brother Michael Lee in the building. What's good, fam? Hey, we're not talking about recreational use women over here today, man, or hair hats or anything like that, man. We're talking about money.
So here's what I'm getting at. The government currently generates about $2.2 trillion from income taxes. So hypothetically, income taxes would be able to be eliminated entirely if the government could somehow spend $2.2 trillion less, make $2.2 trillion more from tariffs, or force a combination of the two. And in terms
But hold on, we generate $2.2 trillion annually from income tax. But we just had a Powerball that was 1.5, somewhere between 1.5 and 1.7 trillion. Just that one lottery. You see why I'm so stuck on the federal sales tax? That was let's say 1.5, 1.6 trillion dollars for that lottery, that Powerball, based on selling tickets for $2. I think a Powerball ticket is $2. I think that's what it is, John. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, bro. If we had a federal sales tax on every good and service, I'm thinking we might 5x what we normally take in revenue. But again, I could be wrong.
The likelihood of this actually happening, here's what I found very surprising. Although before we go into that, in terms of what I'm personally doing about all of this, I'm just using it as a way to diversify. Like Analysts have made the argument that Bitcoin serves as a hedge for instability, while others see it as an opportunity against a weakening dollar. That's why I've taken the approach to invest in as many different asset classes as I can. And using our sponsor, the Gemini credit card, has helped me do exactly that.
Check
For
out
those
Gemini.
unaware, they are the only instant crypto reward credit card that gives you Bitcoin back every time you purchase. For example, you could get up to 4% back on transportation, 3% back on dining, 2% on groceries, and 1% back on everything else, which is fantastic for a card with no annual fees. Plus, you're not just limited to Bitcoin. You could select from more than 50 different cryptocurrencies that you could switch to at any time. This makes it easy to gain a little exposure to the market without having to buy it myself or try to time things perfectly. Plus, like I said earlier, this World Elite MasterCard has no annual fees and it comes in 5 sleek stainless steel colors. Do you have black, silver, rose gold, Bitcoin orange, or the brand new XRP edition? You could also check the description for more information on rates and fees or see if you're eligible with no impact to your credit score. Even better than that, but so far, Bitcoin rewards earned and held for 1 year on the Gemini credit card have actually appreciated 176% on average. So if you'd like to earn Bitcoin or select from more than 50 different options that you could switch to.
That's cool, Graham. I mean, shout out to him for getting that ad. But what if Bitcoin crashes through the floor? What happens with that credit card? I guess you just don't get your bonus. I don't know.
That was down below. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the video. All right, so in terms of whether or not we could actually abolish the IRS and replace it entirely with tariffs, here's what it'll realistically take. As you can see here, in 2025, tariffs have so far raised almost $100 billion, which sounds fantastic until you realize that that only covers 5% of the entire deficit, meaning we would have to increase tariff revenue by 20 times just to cover the amount of overspending in the government alone. Let that sink in. Basically, the entire year of tariffs is only going to generate enough money to pay for Social Security for 3 weeks. But fine, there's certainly the argument that tariffs will increase. This is just the very beginning. It could add up to a lot more money over time. Great. Well, here's what would have to happen in order for that to work. Let's start with removing all taxes. In this case, the government would need to replace about $4.4 trillion worth of revenue collected from the public, corporations, and employment taxes. So tariff revenue would have to jump by 44 times just to balance out. This means from a practicability standpoint, if we import $4 trillion worth of goods to the United States, those would have to double in price on everything just to break even. Like if this were to happen, you would wind up spending about $4,000 for an iPhone, $10 a gallon for gas, or a 100% increase in the cost to build a home. Like, let's be real, if the price of every single import doubled overnight, we just wouldn't import anything anymore, and our revenue would decline substantially. As a result of that, our economy would likely crater, our dollar would plummet, and we would enter the worst depression imaginable because we've cut ourselves off from the rest of the world. Plus, most people would just spend more money on the cost of increased goods than they would have just spent in taxes to begin with, so it would defeat the entire purpose of saving money. We would also be the only country in the world to fund ourselves with 100% tariffs, so that would be quite the accomplishment. Of course, that's not to say that tariff.
Yeah, it doesn't work. That's basically what he's saying. It's just no way it would work, brother Michael, bro. We was trying to become trillionaires, man. All them numbers, man. I think I saw on the blurb there were 2 winning tickets. Is that correct? 2 winning tickets somewhere in flyover country. So they're gonna get to split $1 trillion. Good for them. When it's all said and done, they'll probably walk away with a couple $100 million. Appreciate the numbers, man. Yeah, the tickets in my car. I meant to check it today. My daughter and I picked her up from school, and we went grocery shopping, and I forgot to check it. But I appreciate it, bro. I got an app too, so I just scan it into the little app, and it tells you if you want anything. I mean, shoot, maybe I got like enough of those numbers in the Powerball, and I can win, quick 10,000. That'll be fun. But let's continue with the video.
Revenue can't be increased over time, and one study made the argument that tariff revenue could theoretically be as high as $780 billion before having diminishing returns. But so far, no developed country uses tariff revenue of more than 2.7% to fund revenue, meaning, again, this would be unprecedented, and it would still fund less than 20% of the overall government budget. And this doesn't even account for the possibility of other countries starting a trade war or igniting a global fallout. But what if there was a way to reduce income taxes by just getting rid of personal income taxes? In this scenario, personal taxes make up about $2.2 trillion worth of revenue. So tariff revenue would have to increase by 22 times today's levels just to make this work. Again, just as a hypothetical, you would have to pay at least 55% more on every single imported item just to begin to make a difference. And that's assuming that people have the money to spend on this, which they don't. Inevitably, this would cause just as much of a global sell-off. The poor and middle class would bear and pay for the brunt of this, and we would still spend trillions of dollars that we just don't have. So how would this ever actually work? Well, the honest answer is it can't. It would be impossible to eliminate federal income taxes.
Well, there you have it. We'll leave it there. Shout out to Graham. I like what he's doing over there. Don DeMarco to him. Shout out to Graham. Of course, everyone loves what he's doing. Like, that cat's everywhere, man. He's like, I've seen him talking to Fresh and Fit. I've seen him talking to, he was here in Tampa, man. He has a real good, close relationship with Ben Mahler. So, yeah, maybe if I'm lucky, if I work hard enough, man, if I eat my Wheaties, one day I'll bump into this brother, and I hope I do. But, the video is linked below if you guys want to watch the rest of it. I'm going to go watch the rest of it myself. I see where he's going with it. He just basically those people who think the tariffs are going to, replace income tax and tariffs are going to be a good thing for America or any country. He just gave the truth on that. That was a campaign thing. When I heard it, I'm like, that's not going to work. And again, I don't know finances like that, but I do know history. And I'm like, my thing is this: if tariffs were so great, if you can just handle your business with tariffs, then every developed nation on the planet, that's what they would be doing. But they're not. Like I said, it's a very small percentage. Like, these tariffs are very small. It's not nothing really. And it's used for leverage and this and that. And it's a political thing. It's a chess piece. So when Trump was saying that, like, oh, we're going to go with tariffs, I'm like, that's not going to work, fam. So anyway, that's it. That's all I got for tonight, guys. I wanted to talk about what's going on. I just wanted to show that because it was like, no income tax. Are you kidding me? We just saw what's going on with the dollar and all that. And if they were to say no more income tax, bro, that would absolutely obliterate what we got going on here financially in the U.S., in my opinion. Brother Michael, man, thank you so much. Brother Michael Lee jumped on at the end, but Brother Michael was like really breaking it down, giving us some really good sauce on what's going on. Brother Michael, I'm going to hit you on X, man. I promise you. I'm going to hit you on X. I definitely want to continue the conversation. Brother Michael Lee, next time we on here, we're going to be talking about some red pill stuff, man. We're going to be talking about the guys who ghost women. That's something that a lot of women just get shocked when a dude just leaves her on red or, ghosts her or whatever, blocks her. And I tell dudes all the time, like, man, if you're a top tier guy, you're saying no to dimes. You're blocking, you're ghosting, all that dimes, because that's what you're used to. So we're going to talk about that next time we get on here. Appreciate y'all, man. Be careful out there, man. Did you guys see that news story about the dude in, what was it, North Carolina or South Carolina on the train, attacked a woman and deleted her with a knife? Horrible, horrible stuff, man. Horrible stuff. Brother Penny's following you. Brother Mike on X. We should all go over there and give a follow to Brother Mike on X, man, because that's what I'm about to go do as soon as we're done here. But, yeah, man, this poor woman, Ukrainian refugee, this cute woman gets onto the train. She sits down in front of this guy who, it's crazy. There's no other way to put it. He pulls out a knife and he deletes her right there on the spot, man. It's all on video. It's all on video. Horrible, man. Like, this is the world we're living in. We have to get crazy people off the street, get them some help so they don't hurt themselves, and more importantly, they don't hurt others. I'm trying to, I want to wait for the reporters and the journalists to get into this. I'll bet you anything that this guy had documented problems. Like, this dude is crazy. Why is he out here on the streets? So we're going to talk about that probably at some point this week as well. But that's it. That's all I got, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was cool. I appreciate the input. I appreciate everyone, that's, in the chat. And for you guys who are Ninja watching, or you guys are watching this on Team Replay, please, please, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, make some comments, share, all that good stuff. We're trying to get to 2,200 subscribers. We're trying to get to 2,200 supporters, man. We're like 21. We're at 2,190 something. Right, so we don't need many. So I'm gonna put some shorts out. That normally helps us, get some people over here. And we're gonna continue with this content. I do like talking about male improvement. I do like talking about red pill stuff, dating, the sexual marketplace, all that. But I really like talking about what's going on with our economy, because that's something that hits each and every one of us. I don't care if you're red pill, I don't care if you're blue pill, I don't care what you are. You living in America, you dealing with this, it's going to affect us, guys. So the economy is going to continue to suffer, in my opinion. Just brace yourself. It's coming. Crime is going to go up. Keep your head on a swivel and be looking out for folks. Be looking out for these crazy people too, but be looking out for the wolves out there who are trying to prey on you and take your money, take whatever you have. So just be careful, guys. Pay attention. Keep your head on a swivel. I got to go. I really appreciate y'all rocking out with me, man. I really do. You stay blessed too, brother. You know what I mean? It looked like brother Michael Lee is like, man, he ain't on that. Man, go ahead and jump on there, man. Yo, man, in Florida, you don't even need a license. The way the law has been written, you can just carry a weapon. You don't even have to have a concealed carry permit. I have one. I suggest everyone gets one. And if you don't have any experience, go take a good class. If you're in Central Florida or Southern Florida and you're looking for information on how to get a good concealed carry firearms course, hit me up. Let me know, bro. Y'all know, I'm available on Instagram. Hit me up on Instagram and I can point you in the right direction, bro. But I suggest you definitely get yourself a weapon and get yourself some training and prepare yourself, man. It's going to be a rough 3 to 5 years, maybe 6 years. This was going to be a tough one. It's going to be a rough downturn. It's definitely blood in the streets. But if you keep working, if you grind, you play your cards right on the other side of this, bro, you can add a zero to your net worth because the opportunities are going to be there. Let's just stay ahead of it and get yourself some gold. Like I said, I'm no financial guru. I'm no expert, but I'm just saying every country on the planet seems to be buying gold. You should be buying some gold too. All right. So that's it. That's all I got, man. I appreciate y'all, man. I'm going to holler at y'all later. I'm DL Saint. This is That Really Want to Know podcast. Peace.
Nothing like I've ever seen. It's just a thing of beauty.
Darn, that's the end.